We also know at this hour, joining us is House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, someone who knows firsthand what political violence is like. The Louisiana congressman, as you all recall, was shot and injured at a congressional baseball game practice in 2017. And Leader Scalise joins us now on the phone. I wonder, sir, at this hour, have you been able to speak with Donald Trump? Do you know how he's doing?
Yeah, we texted back and forth a few hours ago. I told him I was praying for him and he's doing well. And he texted back that he's doing fine. Obviously, a lot of concern early off when there was a lot more unknown about his injury, and then we found out more that there was another fatality there, that somebody killed that was a spectator at the rally. And we pray for everybody involved and, glad the shooter's down, but, still a lot more questions, but just alarming that something like this would happen at a political rally with the former president, that it was able to come to this and get that close.
Absolutely. It's chilling. It's scary for people who are watching, Leader Scalise. And I remember when you were injured, the images of then President Donald Trump and the First Lady going to the hospital to visit you. I wonder how that moment, that experience, has changed the way you experience our politics and what your message to Americans is at this hour.
Yeah, look, we in the greatest country in the history of the world, and we have big political differences. And, we did 240 years ago when our country started. But, the way we settle our differences at the ballot box, that's what makes America unique. We cannot tolerate political violence. And, we've seen some of it brewing over the last few years. But at the same time, we all need to be vocal in speaking out against it. And as you mentioned, when I was shot, President Trump came to the hospital at night and, consoled my family. I was in a coma for 3 days, but, he and I still talk about that a lot. And he was there for me. I reached out to him because I want to be there for him, like so many other people want to be there for him, just praying that he's okay. But, then there'll be a lot of other questions later.
Leader Scalise, Bob Costa, I've covered you for a long time, Congressman, and I remember when you were shot. I remember when you came to the United States House of Representatives, and I've witnessed your recovery up close as a reporter. Your injuries were horrific. It has taken you a long time to recover. What is it like as a political figure, someone who is public-facing in your job, to deal with the recovery, the shock, the trauma of an incident like this? Of course, these are different incidents, but you are one of the rare people in this kind of position, a major position, who has been through an assassination attempt as well.
Yeah, and I mean, back then I almost didn't make it through. There were a lot of miracles. But like today, I mean, law enforcement was there for me. I mean, I'll never forget David Bailey and Crystal Griner with Capitol Police, who both confronted the shooter and were both hit during the shootout to keep all of us on that ball field alive. And today you saw, the Secret Service agents immediately rush into Donald Trump to keep him safe as the shots were still being fired. But when I watched the video today, you hear the pop of the shots and ultimately the words "shooter down," and it just brought back a lot of memories, not good memories, but just the memories of that day in 2017, because it was very, very similar in how quick it went, but yet it seemed like it was going on for hours. And then just the bravery of law enforcement then, like we saw today.
So you are now one of the leaders of the House of Representatives. You work very closely with Speaker Mike Johnson, also from the state of Louisiana. What steps, if any, what can you share with us, concrete things that are being discussed, if anything is being discussed, about hearings, possible investigations at the House level of the Secret Service, Homeland Security? Please provide any specificity what you as a House leader are planning to do in the wake of this.
Yeah, we've been in constant communication with colleagues, with staff on the Oversight Committee, on some of the other committees. Of course, we're checking into some of the reports. Was Trump's Secret Service team asking for more Secret Service for weeks and been denied that? We're looking at that as well. But, why was a shooter be able to get on the roof of a building literally 150 yards away from Trump's podium undetected? Those are serious questions that we're going to be asking. Some of that we may find out quickly. Some of it we will have hearings on. But, next week we've got the convention. A lot of additional effort was put into security at both the Republican and Democrat Party conventions this year, as needs to be the case, unfortunately, these days.
But what exactly are you going to do? Do you have any plans at this point?
I'm going to be in Milwaukee for the entire convention. I just got word from the RNC that, it appears the President Trump is going to be going forward with the schedule as was laid out. He'll, I'm sure, talk more about what that is. I mean, we were expecting to hear the VP pick rolled out early next week. That's still going to be up to President Trump how that's done, but I haven't heard of any changes in plans starting Monday in Milwaukee.
Leader, I see Speaker Johnson is already saying he's going to call up the Secret Service director and officials from Homeland Security and FBI for a hearing. That is something that I'm sure the world will watch, but I wonder what your message is. Have you specifically instructed members in the coming hours to rein in some of the rhetoric that I will point out some are using online that is somewhat incendiary in terms of really blaming this somehow on the administration? Have you asked them to refrain from that?
I've already been very vocal within moments of the shooting that political violence is not something anybody should tolerate, but also I went further and said that we need to dial the rhetoric down. And there's been a lot of rhetoric for the last few months. And, and I think some of that, this idea, and Bob Barr even said it, that Donald Trump's some threat to democracy. That kind of language all it takes is one person to hear that and act on it. And I don't know if that's the case today, but those are the kind of things that shouldn't be said. And all of us need to do better and dial the language down. Let's focus on the issues. We have real serious issues that divide us and real serious problems in this country. Let's let the next 4 months be about how to fix and solve those problems in America and not have the incendiary language that unfortunately we're seeing right now.
Leader Scalise, would you call for more security for members of Congress? You are someone who has been attacked as a member of Congress, a former president tonight shot in Butler, Pennsylvania. Yes or no, would you support or call for more security for members of the House and Senate?
We've increased security in the House and Senate and with Secret Service as well. All of those agencies are unfortunately more active than ever at rooting out threats. There's people that still threaten the lives of members of Congress that you hate to see, but it's still going on. And, you see that in the executive level, too. This is something that shouldn't be tolerated. But we also need to see a more aggressive attitude when somebody does commit political violence. Today the shooter was killed, but there's other examples of violence where the people were let go. And that's not a good sign. You shouldn't be letting people go that commit political violence, because then they're going to just send a message that it's okay to do it, and it's not okay.
Leader Scalise, I asked you about your members because I see a tweet from the Republican congressman from Georgia, Mike Collins, who said, quote, Joe Biden sent the orders. Is there any information whatsoever to link in any way the U.S. government to what happened today?
No, look, there are reports that the mainstream media had reported about some comments from Joe Biden. I'm not going to repeat them because I haven't seen the video itself, but I've seen multiple reports of it printed. And again, this is all the kind of thing that needs to stop. It needs to stop immediately. All of these things. And then, you wonder why something bad happens if somebody goes and goes over the extreme. Nobody should take an extreme measure like today, but unfortunately I've seen it myself. And what happened with me was a reaction to things that were being said that shouldn't have been said then.
Joe Biden's statements, I don't know if you saw his on-camera comments, were not incendiary. It was about lowering the temperature. What are you referring to?
This was something from days ago.
Okay. So in this moment, though, in this particular very dangerous moment, that's why I was asking you about your guidance specifically to members. So, but what I understood you saying is that no member should in any way insinuate anything without actually knowing fact first.
Right. And then if the facts are confirmed, whoever's behind that should be called out for doing it and should stop doing it immediately.
Okay. Leader, thank you very much for sharing with us all that you know at this hour and your experience. This has to be difficult to relive, as you mentioned.